Can you guys hear the music? I put it down really low in the background. Can you guys hear it? Is it interfering with anything? Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, not everyone's coming on live. Some people are doing the recording tonight, so we'll get started. Okay, so I thought we could do some work on the lungs this week. So my theme all week is going to be about cleansing the lungs and really working with the tissue around the lungs, especially with all the, smoky air last week. I thought it would be a good thing to work on. So the tissues around the lungs, around the rib cage, can get restricted. That can be due to many things, particularly stress that can cause things to contract. If we're feeling like we need to protect ourselves from something, the tissues will kind of tighten around the rib cage area. Also, just posture. So if our posture is not good, we'll have a collapse in the rib cage and those tissues start to kind of adapt to that shortened position. And then they're not so supple and we try to breathe and then the rib cage is not getting that proper movement. Also, the diaphragm is a big piece of it, of course. That can get adhesions on it. Stress, posture, again, affecting the movement of the diaphragm should be going up and down with proper breathing. And if it's not, then we're not getting that full breath into our lungs. So we'll work with a lot of stuff with breath tonight. We're going to use the balls to kind of release some of the tissue around the rib cage. And then we'll do just a little bit of flow and finish with some restorative. So I think it'll be a really nice practice for you guys tonight. Hi, Holly. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just make sure everybody's muted. And of course, if you have a question and you need to unmute, feel free at any time. We're gonna need a blanket here initially. And some of you guys know how to do the trifold. So let me just bring that up close so you can see. So if you have your yoga blanket, you're going to fold it in thirds. So it's about this size. Okay, so you take it how it comes, like we say, off the pile blanket. And then you fold it over to go back here so you can see. So you fold it over 1/3 and then back again and then smooth that out. Okay. And then that's going to be going underneath our spine. And then two other things I want to mention. Hold on 1 second here. So we're either going to put a second blanket or a pillow at the top for your head, or another thing I like to do is to make a little bump in the blanket. So what you do is just kind of tuck it under. And then the little bump goes in the curve of your neck. Okay, so you'll come down first and just kind of, when you come down, really lengthen your spine. And then you can either do the bump, you'll tuck that blanket in so it just supports your cervical. Or if that doesn't work so well for you, feel free to put a blanket, a pillow there. And then legs can be like down angle if you prefer. You could stick your blocks there. You could do feet flat, or you could extend your legs out straight. Okay. So I'll give you guys a moment to get into position. And I think we had a couple people come in late, so we are working on our breathing and our lungs tonight, doing a lung cleanse. All right. So make any final adjustments and then we'll just go ahead and settle in. And perfect night for it, because one of the analogies I like to use is called the gentle rain breath. So if the rain comes down really heavy, it kind of runs off and it doesn't penetrate the soil. And we want the rain to go deep down into the roots of the plants, right? So with our breath, If we breathe in like a quick, sharp breath, it's going to end up being very shallow. But if we breathe very softly, imagine that the breath like a gentle rain, it's going to go deeper into our lungs. Okay, so as you relax over the blanket, let your shoulders soften downward. Come into a very soft, gentle breath. And I'm going to have you stay with that for a couple of moments as I share some readings with you today about breath and what we call pranayama. This is from a book called Yoga Ancient Heritage, Tomorrow's Vision by a teacher named Indu Aurora. She's becoming one of my favorite teachers. But she writes about the word pranayama. So I'll share this with you guys. And I know some of you are teachers, so this might be really interesting to you guys. The word pranayama, pra, the root pra in Sanskrit, means primary, first, or innate. And then ana, from anu, means the tiniest, smallest, indestructible unit of energy. Ayama means to lengthen, to expand, to discipline, to control. So pranayama in this sense is the multiplication and expansion of the tiniest unit of energy in the body to tap into the eternal prana, our life force energy, which is present all around and within us. Breath is the reflection of life in a human body. However, it is not oxygen, but prana, which gives energy to our mind, body, and spirit. Through the discipline of breath, more prana is taken and stored in the body. So our breath is our life force energy. It's the tiniest unit of energy, but when we use control of the breath, we come into the state of pranayama. So pranayama in this sense, as this teacher is talking about it, is not the actual breathing itself. It's the state we arrive in when we're breathing well. Okay, so how do we know we're doing that? If our breath is even, unbroken, quiet, and prolonged, we are in a state of pranayama. When we have a calm mind, a relaxed body, and the experience of peace, we are in the state of pranayama. Ideally, the calmer the breath, the calmer the mind, and eventually we want to come around to about 2 breaths per minute. So it's really about slowing the breath down, which helps regulate our nervous system and all the systems of the body. So we're going to stay here and we're going to do a little self massage and myofascial work. So the first thing we'll do is a little diaphragm massage. So I'd like you to bring your hands to your lower rib cage and find the very edges of the bottom of your ribs. Right underneath this is where our diaphragm is. So take your fingers and kind of start to press in right around your lower ribs. And you could just kind of massage in here, press in as much as like you're comfortable, right? If there's any discomfort, go gentle. Just think about the sense of releasing any tightness here in our diaphragm. We get holding patterns in our breath, and then the diaphragm kind of gets fixated and stuck, and it doesn't move up and down like we want it to. So take a couple moments and just massage this area of the diaphragm. Maybe noticing if there's any tenderness. I hope you guys are able to still hear me okay. It's pouring like mad here, and this is kind of almost like an outdoor room I'm in. It's an extension, and the rain's sounding really heavy on my roof, so I hope it's not interfering. Okay, relax your arms for a moment. Take a couple of breaths now. Now we're going to place our hands on our rib cage on the sides. So one hand on either side of your rib cage. And just give a little massage to this area of your ribs. And you might see if you could maybe slide your fingers between the bones. And just give that tissue a little massage. Get down toward the lower ribs, into the side. Maybe you could even reach a little bit into your back ribs with your thumbs. And slide your thumbs down the center of each of those ribs. And then place your hands back on your rib cage. And let's take a few breaths of what I call lateral breaths. So I want you to see if you could breathe out into your side ribs. So have a sense of the rib cage expanding out toward the sides into your hands. Right. From here, we're going to go ahead and release and take your arms out to a T. So right in line with your shoulders. Now, as you inhale, take your arms and try to touch the sides of the ribs. So stretch your arms long. You might even lift them off the ground if you want, or maybe just let your fingers raise the ground. And then exhale and relax the arms back down into the floor. Okay, so we'll repeat that. Inhale, reach wide through your arms. This time, arch your back. We do cat-cow, arch your back away from your blanket and try to squeeze your shoulder blades in a little bit. And then exhale, soften and melt your back body back into your blanket. You might need to have your feet flat for this one. If your legs are still in bound angle, it might be more helpful to have something to press your feet into. So go ahead, let's do that a few more rounds. Inhale, expand your arms, arch your back, draw your shoulder blades towards each other, a little squeeze, and then exhale, melt, and let everything go. So 2 more rounds like that. Inhale, expand, squeeze your shoulder blades, arch your back a bit, and then exhale, melt. One more time, just like that. All right, so just let that back body soften down now. Take another breath or 2. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and set your blanket. Take the blanket out. And maybe you want something under your head. We're going to be staying here on our back for a little bit. So if you want a blanket under your head, you could fold that in half. And then grab your tennis balls. Keep those nearby. And then we'll come back down with our feet flat, knees bent. Take your balls and you're going to place them on your left side, right alongside your rib cage, and lift up a little bit, just kind of tuck them under there. So they're like halfway in, halfway out. And then extend your left leg out long and take your arms back out to a T. I'll give you guys a moment to get that settled. So maybe a blanket under your head. If you don't need it, that's fine too. Left leg straight, balls tucked under your left side ribs. Okay. Right knee is going to be bent. And then take the right foot a little bit off to the right side of your mat. And drop your right knee over to the left. And as you drop your knee over to the left, roll on top of the balls. And let your head roll over to the right side. Really push into your right foot and arch your back. And then exhale, you'll melt back down to the start. So we're getting that myofascial stimulation into the side ribs. Now, if the balls bother you, you can skip them or you can pad them with a little blanket layer, okay? So let's repeat that. Inhale, press in your foot, look over your right shoulder, and let your left rib cage roll up onto the balls. And then exhale, relax back to the start, okay? So we're gonna do that 3 more rounds. Every inhale, you're doing the little arch. And as you exhale, you're returning back to the start. Okay? So this is the one, if you've ever gone to somatic class, it's the one called unwinding. And it's stretching out the psoas at the same time on that right side. Also, the right side chest may be getting a little bit of a stretch. So really good for lots of different areas of respiration. So we'll talk about some of these different things as we're going through the practice tonight, but the psoas can also inhibit our breath if it's tight and or weak. Okay, go ahead and come back to center. Slide the right leg out, both legs out for a moment, and feel into your left side ribs after you did that little myofascial work. How's it feel on that left side? Try to feel those lateral breaths breathing out into your rib cage. Almost feel like that left side is a little bit more alive for me. It's a little bit more supple. I can breathe better into that left side. So let's go ahead and try the other side. Switch your balls over onto your right rib cage. Tuck them in halfway. Bend your left knee. Extend your right leg. Arms out to a T. And we'll do 5 cycles. So we drop that knee over to the right. Roll up onto the balls. Push in your foot, look over your left shoulder. Keep that left arm nice and heavy. You'll get that stretch across the front of your chest. And then melt back down. Go ahead and do 5 rounds, so that's 1. And key here is we want to move slowly, mindfully. So if we just kind of rush through this process, really bypass some of the benefit that we'll receive if we go slower. Come into it on the inhale and relax on the exhale. The last 2 rounds. One more. All right, and then go ahead, release, slide your balls out, slide your legs out, and have that moment of observation. Just feeling into now the right side rib cage. Can you breathe out into your ribs? And we'll do one more thing here on our backs, then we're gonna move a little bit more. So we're going to come back to the balls on the left rib cage. And then we'll cross the right leg over the left leg. Scoot your hips a little bit over to the right. We're going to drop over into a twist. And you're going to be right on top of those balls. And then we're going to hold it here for about 5 breaths. Now you can reposition those balls to wherever they feel good for you. And if you don't like them again, you can always take them out. And then feel the pressure of the rib cage on top of the balls there. I'm going to take those slow, gentle breaths. Remember those qualities of the pranayama. We want the breath to be smooth and even and prolonged. Sounds like the rain is a little bit slowing down here, so that's good for me. It's hard for me to talk over it. It was so loud. Always feel free to modify if anything doesn't feel right in your body. All right, so after you feel like you've had around those 5 breaths, we're gonna go ahead and take that top foot back to the floor, roll back to center, even yourself out, slide your balls out. Again, feel that left side. So you can keep your feet flat now. Now let's go ahead and switch it over. So balls over onto the right side. We'll really tuck them in there. Left leg on top. Shift your hips a little to the left and then roll to your right until you get some weight on top of the tennis balls. And then we'll breathe here for our 5 cycles of breath. As you breathe, can you feel a little bit of breath moving into your back ribs? So that'll increase that pressure onto the balls as you breathe into your back ribs, where we have more of our lung tissue in the back than in the front. Follow those exhales all the way to completion. We've got one more round. And when you're ready, we'll slowly start to come back to the center and slide your balls out. Take a moment and observe. So just a little bit more freedom here in the rib basket, in the tissues underneath the ribs. All right, let's go ahead and roll to the side and we'll very slowly make our way up into a seated posture. And feel free if you want to sit up on a cushion, pillow, blanket, whatever you've got. And we'll do a little seated work. Okay, so finding a comfortable seated position for yourself, sitting up nice and tall. A couple more little self-massage points. So we're going to take our right hand over towards your left shoulder. So I'll mirror you guys. So take your hand over to your shoulder. And then take that hand that's on the floor, take it back a little bit. So you feel like you're opening up this little depression here inside the head of your arm bone. And you're going to massage right in there. Often is a tender sore spot. It's considered one of the acupressure points for the lungs. So we're massaging the acupressure point for the lungs here. All right, and then go ahead, switch sides. Take the hand a little behind you so you're broadening your collarbone. Rather than that shoulder forward, we want to open up that, we call it the eye of the heart, and then just kind of massage into that area. A lot of us were always shoulders forward, arms forward, and we can get some stagnant energy in here. So we're just increasing the blood flow right into these lung points. Okay, go ahead and release. Give your shoulders a little roll. And then let's inhale, reach the arms overhead. Interlace your palms and press your palms up and lengthen through your spine. Let the sit bones be heavy and lift your rib cage off your pelvis. And then as you hold here, I want you to bring awareness to your side ribs and see if you could breathe out into your side ribs. We're going to hold it for a few breaths, taking what we're going to call tonight the lateral breath. Still breathing into that, belly area as well. We're still doing the gentle kind of softness with the breath. One more. Good, and then slowly release. All right, so we're going to repeat and just have the different arm position. This time, interlace your hands behind the back of your head. And then imagine your elbows could touch the side walls. So really broaden and widen through your elbows. Keep your rib cage lifting, really expansive, and then find that lateral breath once again. Breathing out into those side ribs. One more. Good, and release. Okay, take a pause. We're going to come back to that position. We're going to add a twist and some other things there. So we'll bring those hands back up. Inhale, lengthen up tall, stretch your elbows toward the side walls, and we're going to twist over to your right. And then hold it there and take your right arm and reach it back behind you. Really expand through that right arm. Keep the back of the head lifting and find your lateral breath. One more. And then release and come back to the center. Good. Inhale, nice and tall. Exhale, twist the other way. And then reach your arm back behind you. Really lengthen through that arm. Lift the back of your skull. Take another breath. And then back to the center. Good. Release your hands down to the floor behind you. Walk your hands back. Shoulder blades drawing towards each other. And then lift your heart. And then really open wide through your collarbones. Breathe here. One more. And then release and slowly come back up. Okay, so we're going to come into tabletop position. Feel free to pad your knees if you don't have a blanket down on your mat. And we'll begin to come into our cat-cows. And as you do cat-cows, we're going to do about 5 rounds or so. I want you to think about that area of the diaphragm that we massaged, okay? So as you inhale, there's like a little stretch through the area of the diaphragm. And then as you exhale, we're kind of squeezing that area of the diaphragm. And then continue, inhale, we arch, a little stretch through the area of the front ribs, and exhale, round. Okay. So let's do 3 more cycles, take your time. Start to focus in on exhalation. So I'm talking about cleansing the lungs. A lot of us are stuck more in an inhale phase. So getting a good exhale is going to be more cleansing. Get all that air out. And then we've got more freshness coming into the lungs. We're going to take 1 more cycle and then we'll move it back to child's pose. Go ahead and pause in your child's pose. Take a few breaths. Child's pose is a great place to maybe bring some breath into your back body. So we want to try and bring some breath, some circulation and stimulation into these different parts of the breathing space, the breathing cavity. All right, let's go ahead, come back up into tabletop position. And we're going to repeat a cat-cow, but we're going to just hold it this time. So as you inhale, we're arching the back, and we're going to hold here for a few breaths. Think about moving your front ribs forward. Keep a little tone in your belly. Watch your neck, you're not hyperextending. And you're still breathing here. Right, so from here we'll come into a rounded spine and then we'll hold the rounded spine. So even though we normally exhale in this position, you're still going to be breathing. Full cycle of breath, but press through your palms, spread your shoulder blades apart. Feel like you're really opening up, fanning your back ribs open. One more breath. And then release back to child's pose. So most of these evening practices are going to be more on the relaxing side, nothing too intense. It's more to be a wind down at the end of your day. So we're going to come into puppy pose next, and we're going to use our blocks. So grab your set of blocks. And you're going to place them short end to short end in front of you on your mat. And then some of you might want to have a blanket on top of those blocks. So I have like cork blocks because my cats chew them, so I like to put cushion on mine. Totally up to you if you don't feel like you need it, okay? So for puppy pose, it accomplishes several things. We're lengthening the side body, and we're also working on letting that upper spine come in a bit. We're going to put the elbows up on top of the blocks and bring your palms together to touch. Walk your knees back a little bit. So it's not really like child's pose where our hips are down. Our hips are actually off the ground. And then your elbows are going to walk a little forward. Maybe your head comes to the blocks. And let your palms come behind the back of your head. Now, some of you might wish to go deeper and bring your head to the floor. So you might bring your elbows closer to the edges of the blocks. And then think about your hips drawing back away from your arms. You're lengthening your side body. And then let your upper spine kind of melt in toward the ground. And breathe. And if this bothers your shoulders, I do recommend a little bit of pressing the elbows down into the blocks, which will help engage the shoulder muscles for not just kind of totally hanging out in our joints. Let's see if we can do about 3 more breaths in your puppy pose. Can you find that lateral breath on this last breath? And then press down into the elbows, slowly walk yourself back in, and then we'll go ahead and take the blanket and the blocks out of the way. Okay, so come into a little gentle flow, come back into tabletop position. And then first we're going to do a little table to child's pose. And this is one of my favorite ways to start to really work on lengthening your exhales. So we're going to gradually progress to deeper, longer exhalations. So we'll start by a little inhale, lift your chest. And as you exhale, push your hands forward, send your hips back, and come into a child's pose. Now you don't have to even go all the way down. The elbows might bend a little bit. And then we're going to repeat that. So inhale, come up. And as you exhale, let's see if we can count to about 4 or 5 as you draw back. So slow it down a little bit. And as you get to the very bottom, give your belly just a gentle squeeze. And then go ahead and repeat that. Inhale, come up into your tabletop. Little bit of a lift of your chest, and then exhale, draw back and lengthen your exhale 4 to 5 counts. When you get to the bottom, give the belly a gentle squeeze, little compression, and then add on. So as you come forward next time, maybe you can go back in about a 6 count exhale. And we're just going to repeat this maybe 4 or 5 more times. And see how long you can make that exhalation. I'm gonna give you a couple more things to try as you do this. So you might see as you get back there and you empty out, see if you could stay empty for a moment and come into what we call kumbhaka. So just a very brief pause and then return, coming into your inhale. So we stay empty for a moment and we try to get the mind to be still and quiet in that emptiness. Okay, so last 3 rounds, keep adding on a count as long as you can. If you get to maximum, maybe you want to stay at like a 7 or an 8. Some people end up getting to a 10 or a 12. So no particular right or wrong, what feels right in your body, your breath. So good to really work on our exhalation phase. Really strengthens our lungs when we focus on that exhale. And then after you finish your next round, let's go ahead and stay in our child's pose now for a few breaths. So go ahead and pause and breathe into that back body. Let it all go for a moment. And maybe notice the effect of slowing the breath down, slowing your exhales down. Those brief pauses. From here, slide your hands all the way forward into an extended child's pose. The knees are wide so that your belly can kind of go in between your legs. And then just lift your head a little bit without lifting your chin. And slide your right hand forward and kind of shift to the right. And then slide your left hand forward, shift to the left. And just go a little side to side action. And each time you do, you're getting nice lengthening on the side body. So lengthening through the area of the rib cage. It's just a little rocking side to side. Kind of like what I call up slip, down slip that we do on our backs, but we're doing it here with the arms. So one hand reaches farther than the other. One more round on each side. And then back to center, stack your palms under your forehead and rest. All right, be back up in your tabletop position when you're ready to. Walk your hands just slightly forward of your shoulders. Take an inhale into a slight cow pose. And then we're tucking the toes and we'll lift up into a downward facing dog pose. Hold there for a moment and really lift your heels up. Get your sit bones high. Let your head come down. So the higher we get those sit bones, the more we're in an inversion. Arms are nice and strong. And then knees down. Inhale a little bit into that cow pose. And then exhale, push the hands forward back to child's. As you inhale, we're going to come up onto our knees. So I'm going to face forward here. And then bring your hands behind the back of your head like we did when we were seated. Stretch your elbows toward the sides walls, lengthen out through the elbows, and then we're going to twist over to one side. And then inhale back to center. Exhale, twist to the other side. Inhale back to center, and then release one arm down. Inhale, reach up tall, and then side bend. And as you side bend, try to reach your elbow up toward the ceiling. Keep your tailbone drawing down so we're not arching the lower back. And see if maybe you could reach your hand a little bit more toward the floor as your elbow reaches up. Good, and then come back to the start. Bring your hand behind the back of your head. Inhale, lengthen up tall, release your other hand down, and come into a side bend. And as you come into that side bend, make sure you're not twisting your torso. The tailbone is drawing down, and then reach your elbow up toward the ceiling and your other hand toward the floor. And then think about that space you're creating in the rib tissue on that open side. Good, release both arms back up. Inhale, exhale down, child's pose. Inhale, tabletop, slight cow pose. Exhale, downward facing dog. Stay here. All right, so lift your heels up again, nice and high. Come onto the balls of your feet. Get your hips and sit bones as if you're going to touch the ceiling. And then arms are strong, firm the arms. See if you could keep those hips lifting as you let the heels start to come back down toward the ground. Hold it there. And when the heels start to come down, they don't have to hit the floor, but keep your sit bones drawing up. One more breath in the inversion. And then release, knees down, child's pose. So inversions can be really beneficial for our lungs, that reversal of gravity. It's like we're bringing that fluid content, changing the contents. Very nourishing for our lungs to go upside down. Okay, we're going to slide forward onto the belly. Prop up onto your forearms in Sphinx pose. And then press down into your forearms, your wrists, your thumb and index finger, and lift your chest. Draw your shoulder heads back, opening up through the collarbones. And then draw your heart and belly forward. So really stretching out the area of the psoas and the diaphragm. They're intimately connected through our fascia. Hold it there, one more breath. And then go ahead and come down and rest for a moment. Maybe give your hips a little wiggle side to side. Okay, we're going to do another little diaphragm massage. So press yourself up and grab your blanket. So we're going to take the blanket from what we call the neutral, and we're going to roll it up from the long edge. And we're going to make a U shape out of it. So an upside down U. Got it? And we're going to place that onto the mat. And this is going to be another kind of diaphragm massage. We're going to lay over that U shape. So the U shape comes towards you like a rainbow, and you'll lay over it with your rib cage right on top of it. So you want the blanket to hit right below your rib cage, just same place where we did that massage. Okay. Now you might feel this is a little uncomfortable. See if you could go with it. If it's too much, you can just come back to Sphinx pose, and we'll prop up onto the forearms. And let the rib cage get heavy onto that U-shaped blanket. Try to breathe into it. And you're getting a little massage into the tissue and the fascia around your diaphragm. Now we're going to try and do a little side-to-side movement. I like to slide my hands back and then just draw my chest over to one side, and then draw the chest over to the other side. And just kind of sway it back and forth a little bit. Might decide you want to move up a little bit or down a little bit. All right, come back now, just rest down if you can on top of the blanket. If you need to take it out, take it out. You come back up again, and this time pick your shins and feet up. So come a little bit more into a back bend. And again, you're gonna just kind of slide a little bit side to side. Back to center, back into Sphinx with your feet up. Pull your belly forward a little bit. Take one more breath here. And then release. We're gonna slide that blanket out and come all the way down and rest. Breathe into your belly. Breathe into your rib cage. As you rest your head down on the ground, see if you could maybe bring some breath into your back body. So back ribs, common stagnant area. Can we bring some breath in there? Okay, so next thing's gonna be an opener for the front of the chest, and it follows the pathway of the lung meridian. So the lung meridian is like the acupressure line for the lungs. So we're gonna take our right arm out to a T. Most of you have done this with me before. Keep that blanket nearby. You might want it for your head. And you might wanna watch if you've never done this one before. Bring your left hand under your shoulder, slide your right hand over to the right, and then roll onto your right hip. You could stay there, or you could bring your foot behind you. Okay, so you could progress this. Some people like to wrap that left arm around the back. Some people like to go all the way with both feet flat. So that's pretty deep though. Listen to your body. And maybe you want to progress it slowly. So start out kind of mild. We don't want to be like really intense about this stretch, although sometimes it feels good. If we're too intense about it, the nervous system, the tissues are going to be like, whoa, wait a minute, you're going to tear my arm off, and it's going to tighten back up. So we want to progress slowly. And then ask yourself, am I still practicing pranayama? So is my breath still even, continuous, and smooth, or am I forcing things? So if we're forcing things, we're not going to have that calmness, that peace, that shanti. We'll feel stress in our system. So stay mild and take about 3 more breaths. Maybe the head is on a blanket if you feel like the floor is far away. Strain the neck here. After those 3 breaths, you're going to come back to the center. And then watch for a moment. I'm going to bring my left knee out to the side. So I'll show you this way. So pretend this is left knee, so I'm using my right. We're going to come into a twist. So again, you might want to have this blanket here for your head. Left knee out to the side, and then right arm's going to thread through. Bring that blanket on your head, and then take the top arm, circle it over your head, and open it out to a T. You're going to shift onto that bottom hip a little bit more. And if that top arm is really floating in the air, just drape it over your hip or your rib cage so that you don't have to strain your top shoulder. Even if the hand is on the body here instead of out to a T, let that top shoulder get heavier toward the floor. Sometimes I like to pull that bottom shoulder a little bit more to the side, and that'll help you open up into the twist. If you want, you can even straighten your top leg and hold the foot. And if that's too much, you're going to skip it. And again, we're opening up the area of the lung pathway, the lung meridian, when we open up to a T here. And we'll hold for a few more breaths. See if you can really feel that breath in your top ribs. Maybe breathe into those top ribs. Feel maybe any restriction in your tissues there. Last one. Very slowly start to roll back. Take your time. We're going to come all the way back onto the belly and pause. Okay, let's try that on the other side. So now take your left arm out to a T. Really reach through your fingertips, reach through your arm. Bring your right hand in under your shoulder, and we're going to roll to the side. Again, if anything's too much, just go into it very gently. So you might just stack your legs up. Maybe you're going to bring that foot behind you. Maybe you'll wrap that top arm around your back. So go in stages, and remember, go for a milder sensation. You don't want to go for that like super intense stretch. It's going to cause more stress in your body and inhibit the breathing process here, which is what we really are going for. Last 2 breaths. After that second breath, take your time and go ahead and come back to the start, back to your belly. Take a pause. And slide your right knee out to the side. And we come into that twist. Thread the left arm through. And then take that top arm, circle it over your head, get nice and open. And see if you could come out to a T. So it's helpful if you kind of scoop onto that bottom hip and draw the bottom shoulder a little bit over toward the edge of your mat so that you feel more open across the chest. Do support your head if you feel like your head is not comfortable on the floor. Let's take 2 more breath cycles where you are. And after that second breath cycle, go ahead and slowly return and come back to your belly. Okay, grab your set of tennis balls again. And if this is too much, you can go back to the U-shaped blanket. We're going to try the balls in the diaphragm now. So this could be, a little bit more intense than the blanket was. So please listen to your body, but it's a nice release. So we're going to tuck the balls underneath the rib cage. So find a position that feels relatively comfortable for you. And we're going to be up in that Sphinx pose, okay? So pause here and let the abdomen kind of drop into the balls, that upper abdomen area. Breathe into the balls. And then do a little bit of that side to side movement, roll it back and forth. If you want to, you can slide your hands back for a little bit of leverage. So this gets a little deeper than when we started with our fingers massaging the diaphragm. And then come on all the way down and see if you could maybe tolerate it. I know it can be a little intense, but when you come out of it, it's going to be a nice release. And if it's too much to go down, stay up in your Sphinx pose. 2 more breaths. Make sure it's in that fleshy part, not on your bone. And then we'll take those balls out and rest all the way down. Send your breath into your back body. And just notice any little shifts and changes in the breath after doing some of that myofascial work. Go ahead, pick your shins up and rock your shins, your hips a little side to side. And then let the shins come down, press back to child's pose. All right. So we're going to move into some restorative work now. So go ahead and press yourself up. And if you have a yoga bolster, let's grab that. If you don't, you can use a couple of bed pillows to make a bolster. If your pillows are really soft, you'll probably need 2 of those. If you have a nice firm one, maybe 1 would be good. And then let's elevate it by putting a block underneath. So we have a little bit of an incline. And then grab one of your blankets, and we're going to make a little head pillow. So put that up at the top. And then we'll come down, and if you like, you can do the bound angle. Maybe you want to put some cushions under your knees. If you don't like the bound angle, you could just take your legs out straight. Okay, maybe you want something under your knees. Maybe you want to cover up. Some of you have sandbags at home. Maybe you want to put some weight or a weighted blanket on your body. So I always like to have all those things nearby when I do a restorative practice. So I love putting some weight on my body. So feel free to grab whatever you need to get comfortable. So we'll do a restorative breath practice here. So I'm going to give you guys a moment to get everything settled. Once you're down there, if it's comfortable, turn your palms up. Or if you like, you can do one hand on the sternum, one hand on the belly. Maybe tuck the shoulders in a little bit, opening across the chest. Decide on your leg position. All right. So initially here, coming back to that sensation of the gentle rain breath. Let your breath be soft, continuous, smooth and even. Into that state of pranayama where we distill the prana from our breath. So I'll share another little reading with you about that as you settle in. Give me a second to find it. Lost my page. All right. So in order to awaken the prana, we have to give our breath the gift of awareness, discipline, and guidance. And this is what happens with pranayama. Right? So a lot of times we're going through our day and we are not aware of our breath. It's something that happens automatically. We don't have to think about it. So it's part of the autonomic processes of the body. But with the gift of awareness to our breath, we can make those changes. The sacred science of pranayama comes straight from the yogis, yoginis to awaken this prana, which purifies the nerve channels, activates our chakras, and starts to arouse what's called the Shakti in the body. So the distillation of prana from the breath is what we call the pranayama. Of course, we talked about this in the beginning, some of the signs that that's happening. We're calm in our minds. We're relaxed in our bodies. We're not fidgeting or constantly adjusting. We're still in the mind and the body. And we're experiencing that sense of peace, shanti. So I'm going to stay with it now and start to even out the breath. So we call this samavriti when we start to make our inhales and our exhales match in length and duration. So keep that awareness on your breath. It's very easy to let the mind go off, but we're trying to give ourselves the gift of awareness to our breath. So find an even inhale and an even exhale. We might bring a count to it to make sure that's happening. So maybe inhale, count 4, 5, 6, whatever you've got. And then a slow exhale, the same count. Still that sense of the breath being like gentle rain. And when we breathe like that gentle rain with the softness, we're inviting the breath to go deeper into our lungs. Starts to reach those little clusters in our lungs called the alveoli. It goes from our bronchi, the bronchioles, and then to the alveoli. So nice and deep, nourishing breath. Imagine it just going all the way to the roots, like the roots of a plant receiving that nourishment. Now, after we've established the even breath, we're going to try and now lengthen the exhalation phase. So if you're at a count of 6, see if you could make your exhale a count of 7 or 8. If you're at 4, go for a 6 count exhalation. And keep your awareness in the present moment on your breath. If you feel like you're forcing anything, back off to a shorter count. Can you feel a subtle expansion of your rib cage as you breathe in and breathe out? With prolonged exhales, our nervous system can recover and come into more balance. Said to help purify our blood. It helps us distill more of that prana, life force, from our breath. So without our breath, we've got nothing, right? Proper breathing gives us more of that life force energy. And it helps the body begin to heal. Soften your jaw, relax your tongue in your mouth. And now the final stage is to add those pauses in, just like we did in our child's pose, when we shifted back and we tried to find a moment of pause, a breath retention. So the next time you inhale, can you have a slight pause at the top? And then your slow exhalation. And then perhaps staying empty for a moment before you continue that breath. Now, if those pauses don't seem natural to you, I want you to skip it for now. It comes with practice. And if our breath is very compromised, it might feel more aggravating or anxiety producing to hold those pauses. So see what works for you, and if those pauses seem natural and spontaneous, go with it. Stay with that for about 1 more minute. See if you can allow the chest and the neck muscles, the shoulders to stay very still, calm, and relaxed while the breath moves down into your ribs and your belly. Okay, now from here, we're going to start to come back to just a natural breath, letting go of the pauses, letting go of the counting, and simply allow yourself to come into a natural, relaxed breath. That breath that is soft, smooth, continuous, prolonged. Looks like the breath is now breathing itself, body's breathing on its own without any manipulation or changing from your part. Notice the effects of this breath practice. We're going to do one more little guided meditation in your Shavasana. So from here, you are welcome to stay in this position, but if your legs are in any position other than extended, go ahead and extend your legs. If you prefer to come into more traditional Shavasana flat on your back, you might want to just go ahead and take your bolster out and put it under your knees and change position, especially if you feel like you're falling asleep. I want you to stay alert for this last piece. If you're comfortable and you don't want to move, that's fine too. So I'm calling this little meditation we're going to finish with the prana portal meditation. I'm going to be asking you to bring your awareness to different parts of your body. And as you bring your awareness to these different parts of your body, I'd like you to imagine that you could breathe in through those areas. So we're going to start with your palms. So if your palms are on your body, go ahead and turn your palms up at your sides. And then imagine that you have prana portals in the center of your palms, almost like little nostrils. I know it's a little weird, but go with it. And imagine you could breathe in through your palms. Breathe out through your palms. So our prana goes where our awareness goes. Right now, imagine drawing in that life force energy through the center of your palm. Now we're going to shift to our feet. So imagine those prana portals in your feet, and you could breathe in the life force energy through the soles of your feet. Breathe out through the soles of your feet. Drawing that life force energy up through your feet, up through your legs. Now we're going to shift to the pelvic floor. So our pelvic floor is intimately connected to our diaphragm. It should move with the diaphragm. So now imagine your prana portal is in your root. First chakra, pelvic floor. Imagine you could breathe in through your pelvic floor. Breathe out through your pelvic floor. So a lot of pelvic floor dysfunction is related to things like stress as well as breath dysfunction. Every time we breathe in, and if our diaphragm is moving properly, our pelvic floor is moving with the diaphragm. Now we're going to move to our navel center. So imagine you have a prana portal in your navel center. Breathe in. Drawing that life force energy right into your belly. Keep that breath light and relaxed. Now breathing into your lower back. So imagine you could breathe into your sacrum and your lower back. Drawing the breath in as if there's a portal in the lower back. Got a few more spots to go, so if you could stay with me. We're going to move to the crown of your head. And imagine the two hemispheres of your brain. There's a line in the center that divides them. I want you to imagine that your prana portal is now in the center of your brain. In that division, could you imagine breathing that life force energy right into the center of the top of the head? This is my favorite spot. Maybe you have a different favorite spot, but I like this one. Breathing in through the crown of your head, right in between the two hemispheres of your brain. Just two more spots to go. We're going to now go to the third eye, brow center. Prana portal, right in the center of the brow. Breathe in and out through the area of your third eye. All right, final position. Your lower lungs, the bottoms of your lungs. Imagine you have prana portals in the bottoms of your lungs, and breathe into the bottoms of your lungs as if you could take that breath right into those little spots. Right. And now we'll let go of the prana portal meditation. Take a moment, notice how you feel. After this breath-centered practice, having kind of released the area of the diaphragm, Release the tissues around your rib cage. Open up the chest and the arms and shoulder area. Now take your time. Go ahead and just start to take movement as you're ready. So just small movements. Stay subtle. And eventually make those movements bigger until you feel ready to roll to your side. And go ahead and just linger on your side for a moment. Try not to pop up and just disturb that piece you created. Stay in that state of pranayama. And gradually bring yourself up to a comfortable seat of your choosing. Feel free to sit up on something if you prefer. We're going to sit up nice and tall. So when our spine is nice and aligned, our diaphragm moves more easily. It connects in with our pelvic floor more easily, and we've got better breathing. So if our posture's compromised, we're not going to be breathing well. So let's go ahead, sit up nice and tall, open across your collarbones. Take a couple more breaths here. Share one little final reading before we close. Let every unit of energy you inhale inspire the fire within. Let every unit held expand the fire and lift the fire within you. Let every unit exhaled be an expiration and release of unwanted motivation, unwanted heaviness, unwanted tiredness and fatigue, unwanted fears or phobias out of your system. Let all of the karmas dissolve into nothingness, and let there be yoga. Let's bring our palms together in front of your heart space. Take a nice inhale, and as you exhale, bow inward toward your heart. Thank you so much for joining me. Namaste.